The Pentagon just quietly shifted part of its global supply chain. Not to China, not to Vietnam, to Malaysia. And if you're not paying attention, you're about to miss one of the biggest economic shifts happening in Southeast Asia right now. While everyone's been watching the US-China trade war play out, Malaysia has been building something massive behind the scenes. Semiconductor factories worth billions, data centers that power half of Asia's internet, defense contracts with American companies. And here's the part that should make you sit up. Major tech giants are now treating Malaysia like a backup plan for Taiwan. That's not speculation. That's happening today. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how Malaysia went from palm oil and tourism to becoming a critical player in global technology, and why this matters, even if you've never set foot in the country. Let's start with something most people completely miss. Malaysia isn't just attracting foreign investment. It's attracting the right kind of foreign investment. The kind that builds entire industries from scratch. In 2023 alone, Malaysia pulled in over 329 billion ringgit in approved investments. That's roughly 70 billion US dollars. But here's what makes it different from other countries chasing foreign money. About 40% of that went into electrical and electronics. Not garment factories. Not basic assembly work. Advanced manufacturing for semiconductors, data storage, and telecommunications equipment. Intel has been in Malaysia since 1972, but they just committed another $7 billion to expand their Penang facilities. This isn't maintenance. This is Intel preparing for a world where they can't rely entirely on Taiwan for packaging and testing. Infineon, the German chip giant, operates one of the world's largest semiconductor assembly plants in Malacca. Bosch has manufacturing there. Texas Instruments. On Semiconductor. These aren't small players setting up token operations. These are Fortune 500 companies betting billions that Malaysia can deliver. And the Malaysian government didn't just get lucky. They made deliberate moves dating back decades. They created free trade zones in the 1970s, invested heavily in technical education through institutions like MIMOS and Multimedia University, built infrastructure specifically designed for high-tech manufacturing, like the specialized power grids and water treatment facilities that chip fabs absolutely require. Now, here's where it gets interesting for defense. The Pentagon doesn't just buy missiles and fighter jets. The modern military runs on microchips, communications systems, encrypted data processing, satellite technology. All of it depends on semiconductors. And right now, the global semiconductor supply chain has a massive vulnerability. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's chips and over 90% of the most advanced ones. If anything happens to Taiwan, whether through natural disaster, political conflict, or supply chain disruption, the entire global tech industry grinds to a halt, including the US military. That's not a problem the Pentagon can ignore. So what's the solution? Diversification. And Malaysia sits right in the middle of that strategy. Not as a replacement for Taiwan, but as a critical backup. The US government has been quietly encouraging American tech companies to establish redundant manufacturing capacity outside of Taiwan and China. Malaysia checks almost every box. Political stability, English-speaking workforce, existing semiconductor ecosystem, proximity to other Asian suppliers, and crucially, strong diplomatic ties with the United States. This isn't just theory. In 2023, Microsoft announced it would invest $2.2 billion in Malaysia for cloud and AI infrastructure. That same year, Google committed to building its first data center in Malaysia. Amazon Web Services already operates multiple availability zones there. These companies aren't making these moves because Kuala Lumpur has nice weather. They're following a coordinated strategy to build resilient supply chains that can withstand geopolitical shocks. And defense contractors are paying attention too. Companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin source components from Malaysian suppliers. Not the weapons themselves, but the electronic components, sensors, and communications equipment that make modern defense systems work. Malaysia has become part of what defense analysts call the trusted supply chain, meaning suppliers that meet U.S. security standards and aren't subject to Chinese government influence. Let's talk about what this actually looks like on the ground. Penang, often called the Silicon Valley of the East, houses over 300 multinational companies in its free industrial zones. The Bayan Lipas Free Industrial Zone alone employs more than 100,000 people. These aren't low-wage assembly jobs. Engineers in Penang earn between 4,000 to 8,000 ringgit monthly for entry-level positions, roughly 850 to 1,700 US dollars. Senior engineers and managers can make 15,000 ringgit or more, which is $3,200 and up. Compare that to Vietnam, where similar positions pay less, or Singapore, where the same engineer might cost a company 3 times as much. Malaysia offers the sweet spot, skilled labor at competitive prices with infrastructure that actually works. And the Malaysian government keeps investing to maintain that advantage. They recently announced the National Semiconductor Strategy, targeting 500 billion ringgit in investments by 2030. They're expanding technical training programs, offering tax incentives that can reduce corporate tax to as low as 0% for qualifying high-tech investments for up to 10 years. But here's what separates Malaysia from other countries trying to climb the tech ladder. Malaysia isn't just doing assembly anymore. They're moving up the value chain into design and research. Penang now hosts chip design centers, not just packaging facilities. Malaysian engineers are working on next-generation semiconductors, not just putting existing chips into plastic cases. This matters because the real money in tech isn't in assembly. It's in intellectual property. It's in designing the products that other countries manufacture. And Malaysia is positioning itself to capture more of that value. MIMOS, Malaysia's national R&AMP, D Center for ICT, holds hundreds of patents. Malaysian startups in fintech and AI are attracting venture capital. The ecosystem is maturing beyond just being a manufacturing hub. Now let's address something important. Malaysia faces real challenges. Corruption remains an issue, though the current government has made anti-corruption a priority. Bureaucracy can be slow, especially compared to Singapore's efficiency. Infrastructure outside major cities needs upgrading. And there's brain drain, with talented Malaysians often leaving for Singapore, Australia, or the US where salaries are higher. But here's the thing. Every developing country faces these problems. What matters is trajectory. And Malaysia's trajectory is unmistakably upward. Foreign direct investment keeps increasing. Major companies keep expanding their presence. The government keeps investing in education and infrastructure. Those are the fundamentals that matter. The data center boom tells another part of this story. Malaysia is becoming a regional hub for cloud computing and data storage. Why? Several reasons. First, land is available and relatively affordable compared to Singapore or Hong Kong. Second, electricity costs are lower. A data center is basically a giant electricity consumer, so power costs matter enormously. Third, Malaysia offers good connectivity to undersea fiber optic cables that link Asia to the rest of the world. Fourth, the climate, while hot, is stable. No typhoons like the Philippines. No major earthquake risk like Japan or Indonesia. Google's data center in Johor will serve Southeast Asian users, reducing latency for everything from YouTube to Google Cloud services. Microsoft's Azure expansion means businesses across the region can access cloud computing with faster speeds and lower costs. This isn't just good for tech companies. This is infrastructure that enables economic growth across multiple sectors. Fintech companies need cloud services. E-commerce platforms need data storage. Even traditional businesses are moving to digital systems that require robust data infrastructure. And here's where the Pentagon connection comes back. Modern militaries increasingly rely on cloud computing for logistics, communications, and data analysis. Having friendly, secure data centers in Southeast Asia matters for U.S. military operations in the Pacific. Malaysia provides that option without the political complications of putting everything in a single country. Let's talk about specific numbers that show this transformation. In 2010, Malaysia's electrical and electronics sector contributed about 25% of total manufacturing output. By 2023, it was over 40%. Semiconductor exports alone were worth over 450 billion ringgit in 2023. That's about 96 billion US dollars. That makes Malaysia one of the top 10 semiconductor exporters globally. For a country of 33 million people, that's remarkable. Employment tells another part of the story. The electrical and electronics sector employs over 700,000 Malaysians directly. Add in related services, logistics, and support industries, and you're looking at over 1 million jobs connected to this sector. These jobs pay better than traditional manufacturing. They require education and training, which pushes the entire education system to improve. And they create spillover effects as engineers and managers eventually start their own companies or move into other industries. The defense angle extends beyond semiconductors. Malaysia has a modest but growing defense industry of its own. Companies like DefTech produce armored vehicles. CTRM builds aircraft components. Sapura manufactures communications equipment. These companies often partner with foreign defense contractors, gaining technology transfer and expertise. And some of their components end up in systems sold to the U.S. military or U.S. allies. Malaysia also plays a strategic role simply by existing as a stable, moderate Muslim-majority country in Southeast Asia. U.S. defense policy isn't just about weapons. It's about maintaining relationships and influence. Malaysia matters geopolitically, which translates into economic opportunities and security cooperation. Here's something most people don't realize about Malaysia's tech rise. It's not just about attracting foreign companies. Malaysia has been developing domestic capabilities. Petronas, the national oil company, has become a major tech investor, backing data centers and renewable energy projects to support them. Khazanah Nasional, the sovereign wealth fund, invests in Malaysian startups and tech infrastructure. The government isn't just hoping foreign companies will show up. They're actively building the ecosystem. And that ecosystem is starting to produce results. Malaysian startups like Carsome, a used car platform, reached unicorn status, valued at over $1 billion. Grab, the super app, was co-founded by a Malaysian. While Grab is now based in Singapore, many of its engineers and operations are in Malaysia. Revenue Monster, a fintech startup, is growing rapidly across Southeast Asia. These success stories create a virtuous cycle. Successful entrepreneurs invest in new startups, experienced employees start their own companies, and the ecosystem becomes self-sustaining. The contrast with other countries in the region is instructive. Vietnam is attracting tons of manufacturing investment, but mostly in textiles, footwear, and basic electronics assembly. Thailand has a strong automotive industry, but hasn't broken into high-tech semiconductors at the same level. Indonesia is huge, but struggles with infrastructure and bureaucracy. The Philippines has a large business process outsourcing sector, but limited advanced manufacturing. Singapore is extremely advanced, but expensive and space-constrained. Malaysia occupies a unique middle ground. This brings us to the future. Where is this all heading? Several trends are converging. First, the U.S.-China technology competition isn't going away. If anything, it's intensifying. That means continued pressure to diversify supply chains away from China and reduce dependence on Taiwan. Malaysia benefits from both trends. Second, AI and advanced computing require massive amounts of semiconductors and data processing. The AI boom isn't slowing down. Every AI model needs chips to train and run. Every cloud service needs data centers. Malaysia is positioning itself to supply both. Third, electric vehicles and renewable energy are semiconductor intensive. An electric car contains far more chips than a traditional car. Solar panels and wind turbines need power electronics. As the world transitions to clean energy, demand for semiconductors will surge. Malaysia's existing semiconductor industry puts it in a strong position to capture that growth. Fourth, 5G and eventually 6G telecommunications require massive infrastructure investment. Malaysia is already rolling out 5G networks. The equipment and components for these networks represent billions in ongoing investment. And as digital connectivity improves, it enables more economic activity, creating a positive feedback loop. The Malaysian government's economic transformation program and shared prosperity vision aim to move the country to high-income status by 2025. They're behind schedule on that specific target, but the direction is clear. Investments in education, infrastructure, and technology are paying off. The middle class is growing. Poverty rates are declining. And economic complexity, a measure of how sophisticated a country's exports are, keeps improving. Now, does Malaysia have this locked down permanently? Of course not. Countries rise and fall based on how well they adapt. If Malaysia becomes complacent, if corruption worsens, if they stop investing in education, if infrastructure falls behind, then other countries will overtake them. Vietnam is hungry. Thailand is competitive. Indonesia has huge potential if they get their act together. But right now, today, Malaysia has momentum. And momentum in economics matters enormously. Companies make investment decisions based on where they see stability and growth. Engineers choose where to work based on opportunities. Governments make strategic decisions based on reliable partners. Malaysia has spent decades building credibility in all these areas. The Pentagon's interest in Malaysia isn't charity. It's strategic calculation. The U.S. military needs resilient supply chains. It needs trusted partners in Asia. It needs alternatives to overdependence on any single country. Malaysia provides all of that. And for Malaysia, this represents an enormous opportunity. Not just to attract investment, but to fundamentally transform the economy. To move beyond middle-income status. To become a center of innovation, not just manufacturing. To build wealth that benefits millions of Malaysians. So here's what this all means. Malaysia isn't just another developing country hoping to attract some factories. It's executing a multi-decade strategy to become essential to global technology supply chains. And that strategy is working. The investments are flowing. The infrastructure is being built. The ecosystem is maturing. Whether you're watching this from Malaysia or anywhere else in the world, this shift matters. It affects the technology you use. It influences geopolitical dynamics. It shows how countries can successfully navigate the complex global economy. Malaysia's rise as a tech power isn't guaranteed, but it's happening right now. And the next decade will determine whether Malaysia cements its position or falls back. Based on current trends, they're on track to succeed. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into economic and geopolitical shifts that actually matter. And drop a comment with your thoughts. Do you think Malaysia can maintain this momentum? What other countries are positioning themselves for similar transformations? Let's discuss.